Hey creeps, it's that time of year after getting to enjoy our holiday decor that we pack it all up until we get to bring it all out again the following year. One piece that I purchased a few years back from Pier back when they were a physical location is this reindeer candle holder. Once I had the vision to change this piece into a Wendigo, I just couldn't unsee it, so let's make this vision a reality by using epoxy clay to modify the reindeer shape where necessary, applying paint to give the creature an air of mystery, and maybe even including some faux fur for tactile dimension. Welcome to the channel, the place to come for spooky DIY home and lifestyle content all year long. Let's get started. The first thing to do was to remove the bow and bells from around the neck. I attempted to use a set of wire cutters to help with the task, which didn't work super well. I ultimately resorted to bending the pieces back and forth until they broke off. And now it's time for the obligatory cleaning shots before applying the epoxy clay and paint. After seeing other channels like Wicked Makers and Rachel Maxey use Apoxie Sculpt, I was super intrigued and had to try this medium out for myself. In short, it's an air-dry clay that has two components that are mixed together in equal portions to activate the ingredients and eventually cure in 24 hours. I watched a couple videos covering the basics and was impressed with how accessible this clay was to use. One method I found was to create two balls of equal size to mix the two components to avoid the clay not curing completely. I've used Sculpey and other oven-baked clays in the past, but love how this clay air dries. If anybody has experience with using Apoxie Sculpt, please let me know if wearing gloves should be a non-negotiable. The instructions said to wear gloves when mixing, but I also found when researching that this clay is skin safe. One of my favorite past projects was when I made a miniature version of La Mierta from the Book of Life. I sculpted the head, hands, skulls, and candles with Sculpey, and then went in with paint for the details and added hot glue drips to the candles to make them more realistic. My plan was to cover the neckband with clay, bulk up the front legs, fill all the leg interiors with clay, add hands to the front feet, and accentuate the ribs. By rubbing the clay with a little bit of water, the Epoxy Sculpt smoothed out nicely. I did apply a little pressure when smoothing out the surface to get more coverage with the clay. To fill the legs, I simply made long coils of the clay and then pressed and smoothed the clay once inside the leg. I originally made it so that the clay was flush with the metal edges, but gradually added more clay to give them more dimension. I had contemplated taking tin snips and cutting the front legs so that they came out at the leg joint, but decided against this because gravity and the posture with the back being hunched over didn't make much sense. To bulk up the front hips, I found creating a ball of clay, then smoothing it out and away from the ball center to flatten the ball's perimeter but keep the center raised was the easiest way to get the shape I wanted. Comparing the left front hip to the right front hip, I found I needed to add a little coil to make both sides look mostly uniform. Hands are always hard for me. Let's not remember the lobster claw incident of October 2023. My strategy for sculpting the hands for this project was to divide the hand into 2 trapezoids, the dividing line being the leg, then adding coils for the fingers. I think this technique of using shapes to simplify a form worked out really well. When I started this project, I was familiar with pop culture and various artistic renditions that depicted the Wendigo as a deer-wolf human hybrid, sometimes with growths that appeared to be tree limbs, but as I delved into the research, I found that the supernatural being had a profound history that I was unaware of. The Algonquin, speaking indigenous people of North America, believed in a powerful monster that craved human flesh and preyed upon those corrupted by greed and weakened by hunger or cold. The monster was the Windigo and was created to serve as a cautionary tale for those isolated from their community or tempted to partake in cannibalism. The appearance of the Wendigo varied even in the beginning, but was typically depicted as an overpowering humanoid with long limbs, sharp teeth, pointy ears, with ashen skin stretched across protruding bones, and having eyes that glowed red like hot coals. In other words, quite different from how the Wendigo often gets portrayed today. I think it's extremely important to not only remain curious about the world around us, but to acknowledge the connection the Wendigo has to indigenous people's culture. If you want to learn more about the Wendigo's origin and evolution in media, I recommend watching the video put out by Monstrum with Dr. Zarka. I'll be sure to link this video in the video description. Creating 2 coils of similar size for the same fingers on opposing hands worked out great. My pinky fingers were looking a little strange, so I just added more clay to widen the hands. So the back feet didn't feel left out, I added a little clay at the bottom of each leg for depth. Once the clay had cured completely, I was then able to apply 2 coats of spray paint. I know they're not perfect, but I'm really proud of how the hands turned out. One thing in hindsight I wish I had done was added wrists, but I do love how the fingernails and little knuckle wrinkles look. To create a pattern for the faux fur pieces, I draped printer paper over the area that I wanted covered and began tracing the jawline, a line down the center front of the neck, a line up to the spinal cord, and an arched bottom edge. That's one cool thing about pattern making. When you're draping a garment or pattern piece for a symmetrical garment or project, you only have to pattern out one side. This pattern took a couple iterations. I really wanted to find a way to make it all one piece by cutting a wedge about 1 inch in under the chin so that it would cinch around the neck but flare out around the chest. I ultimately determined that the piece was going to overlap to get complete coverage, so I had to make it 2 pieces. Cutting fur can be messy. To make it less messy, trace or pin your pattern to the wrong side of the fur, and then gently cut only the fur's woven back to try to avoid cutting the fur's nap. Cutting the nap can result in fur everywhere, even in your eyes, nose, and mouth. I didn't want to lose all the details with the black paint, so I applied some white acrylic paint with a dry brush to make those details pop. To complete the transformation, all that was left was to paint the antlers and skull, and then hot glue the fur in place. For the finishing touches, I added a couple rectangles of fur to the head to conceal the wire attaching the antlers. Initially, I glued the second rectangle of fur, having the nap go over the face, which looked very Davey Havoc in 2006. I had a lot of fun with this one, and I'm excited that I can now say that epoxy clay is another medium in my toolkit to be able to do sculpting projects in the future. I'm going to be taking 3 weeks off in between this video and the next video release in an effort to get back on the regular posting schedule on Fridays, as well as just do content planning for the next year. That means the next video will come out January 19th, so keep an eye out for that. And if you have any projects that you would like to see on the channel, I definitely want to hear those, so be sure to drop those in the comments for consideration. In the meantime, I have this nightstand transformation video that's great for inspiration and or redesigning your space for 2024. Thank you as always for visiting my creepy craft corner of the internet and for watching till the end. Now let's see those final shots. On a cold night. Tonight.